Hello, my name is Bill Holt. My wife Nan and I are Christians who live in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. In February 2021, I was able to retire after 42 years in business, and Nan and I are trying to devote the time we have left in service to the Lord. That includes the work that we do with the local church we are members of, but also in carrying out our individual responsibilities to serve others. As a part of that service, I was fortunate to be asked to serve on the Sacred Selections Business Advisory Board. While I had heard of Sacred Selections over the years, I really didn't know what they were all about. My wife and I became more familiar when our son and his wife decided to adopt through Sacred Selections. In April 2022, we became the proud grandparents of cute little Zachary Daniel, adoptee number 404. He is full of life, growing up way too fast, and is a huge blessing to our family. In this video, I want to address preachers and elders of local churches. According to Ephesians chapter 4, a big part of the responsibility we have as preachers and elders is to help those in the body of Christ grow up into Christ. Based on Ephesians 4 verse 12, that manifests itself in equipping members for the work of service. While service mentioned here may involve worship in our local congregations, it also involves the individual responsibilities that the Lord has given to Christians, whether or not they are related to the work of the local church. For example, Christians are to do good to all men, especially those of the household of faith, Galatians 6 verse 10. That is not a congregational effort, but the responsibility of individual Christians. Even so, it is our responsibility as preachers and elders to teach those in our congregations to be busy in the work God has given us to do. In James chapter 1 verse 27, James defines pure religion for Christians as to visit the orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. Usually when we reference this passage, we're either teaching Christians to avoid sins of the flesh, or we're explaining why the church is not charged with the responsibility for orphans and widows, since the passage clearly is addressed to individual Christians. However, the passage is not written in the negative regarding the care of widows and orphans. It instructs Christians to practice pure religion by caring for the most vulnerable in our society. I don't know about you, but in our sphere of influence, we don't encounter orphans. We do encounter widows, and in fact, my wife and I have supported in various ways numerous widows, including our own mothers. I used to wonder how I could care for orphans when I just don't know any orphans who have a need. On top of that, at 64 years of age, I'm not certain my wife and I could bring an orphan into our home. In earlier years, we probably couldn't have afforded to do so. When I learned about Sacred Selections, that all changed. Sacred Selections is not an adoption agency. They simply remove financial barriers that prevent young, faithful Christian couples from providing a home to fatherless children. The work these young parents do and the work that is encouraged and supported by Sacred Selections is evangelism. When a young child is brought into the home of faithful Christians, there is a high likelihood that that child will be faithful to the Lord. Consider this. If I manage to get someone to study the Bible with me, what is the likelihood they will obey the gospel? Well, if your experience is like mine, the success rate is pretty low. But what is the success rate for children raised in the home of faithful Christians who dutifully teach their children the ways of the Lord? Well, it's much higher. Sacred Selections is closing in on 500 children who have been adopted into Christian homes. Most of these children will become Christians. Adoption is indeed one form of evangelism, and perhaps even evangelism with the highest opportunity for success because of the long window of influence that a parent has on their child. So what is the purpose of my plea to you as an elder or a preacher? I would like to ask that as you make certain in your efforts to preach the whole counsel of God, be sure to include a lesson on the Christian's responsibility to orphans and widows. Don't misunderstand. I'm not asking that you promote Sacred Selections. Promote pure religion as defined by James. Encourage faithful young couples to consider adopting and help them see that adoption is evangelism. Encourage older Christians who have the financial means but not the physical ability to help fund the cost of adoption for young Christian couples. Adoption costs now run between $35,000 and $40,000. That approaches 50% of what a young couple might earn in a year. The financial barrier is nearly impossible unless other Christians step in and help fund those costs. When we provide that support, we share in the ultimate evangelism that is done by those parents with those children. Sacred Selections has provided a mechanism for me to be able to support orphans where I really had no opportunity before. No, I'm not adopting these children, but I am part of an effort to relieve these parents of this enormous financial cost. Most young families don't have the resources. I have the resources and lack the youth and years to raise a child. By working through Sacred Selections, my financial resources are put to work helping young couples provide homes for these children. I have watched as several young families have been able to adopt, provide good homes and good teaching to these children. It is a blessing to know that I have had a part in bringing them together. Again, my plea is simple. One lesson per year to encourage our brothers and sisters to actively practice pure religion, either by being willing to adopt or to help fund adoption. Thank you for your time. Feel free to contact me if you have questions, concerns, or just want to learn more. My contact information is at the end of this video, along with contact information for Sacred Selections. May God bless all these little ones with a home where Christian parents will prepare them for their ultimate eternal home with the Father, who, by the way, adopted each one of us.